Happy belated International Women's Day. Good evening and thank you very much for joining us. This is the Trading Bell. My name is O'Brien Kimani, and tonight on the program we focus on women and how we can entrench a culture of gender inclusivity at corporate Kenya level. This is a show where tonight we are focusing on women coming a day after the world celebrated the World Women's Day. Well, let's now go to the interview and discuss the issues that touches on women and how men can advance that agenda of gender inclusivity in corporate Kenya. So, Millicent, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Geoffrey.
Hi, Mary.
Asante sana.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you.
Joining us on the set is Millicent Onyonyi. She's the Managing Director, BOC Kenya Limited. Thank you very much, Millicent, for joining us.
Thank you.
And Geoffrey Odundo is the Managing Director, Nairobi Securities Exchange. Thank you very much, Geoffrey.
Thank you.
And I want to start with you. When you look at the statistics, out of 65 listed companies, we only have 3 female CEOs. Does it feel lonely on the top there?
Yes, it does. It does feel lonely, and I think it's a good idea for other organizations to look at it, and also for women to seize the moment and go for these positions when they're advertised. Mm-hmm. So I think you get too busy as well to feel lonely. And does it feel lonely? Not that much, no.
Not that much?
No.
At the end of the day, you have...
At the end of the day, you have work to do. So, I mean, loneliness is... there isn't much time for it.
There isn't much time for that. No. But I want to find out from you, when you interact with women and men, you know, at the corporate level, why do we have such a poor statistics when it comes to management levels where women are the leaders? Well,
I think one aspect is the old boys club. Mm-hmm. It's the old boys calling all the old boys forward, and there isn't enough old girls. Actually, the term old girls itself is an oxymoron. Nobody says old girls. Uh-huh. And so there isn't enough girls who have been pulled up. And I think women sometimes give up on their careers in an effort to balance their family, mm-hmm. as opposed to their careers. And I think organizations must make an effort to bring up women and, mm-hmm. and allow women to nurture their families and also succeed in the career place. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hold on those thoughts when you're talking about pulling. The question is who is going to pull and who should be pulled. But I want to go to Geoffrey. Geoffrey, I want to hear from you. I mean, you are the leader of this organization, the NSE, where 65 of the listed companies, we only have 3 CEOs and 4 chair of the board who are women. How does this make you feel?
Well, lonely?
Lonely with no more women around you?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it presents a challenge for us. I think looking at having this conversation today and just having interacted with women at various levels, I think they have a talent, they have a skill, they have abilities that are required at the board level. Mm-hmm. I just said earlier in the day that women bring some level of disruptive thinking to a group think. Mm-hmm. And one of the audience members even say that he's had occasions where any issues he takes on board or takes to the board is looked at in a more deeper perspective if there's a woman, because she looks at the entire scope of things. Mm-hmm. Women know how to compartmentalize issues. I mean, they look at this issue, and also look at the overriding issues. But men sort of stick to a track. So I think at the NSE we are really out there to promote and get more women on board. We're trying to work with partners as in this agenda, mm-hmm. and even through our UN Sustainable Stock Exchange Initiative, which has a diversity as a core part of it. Mm-hmm. We'd like to see more and more women take up roles because we believe that they bring in a different skill set. We believe that they strengthen the governance structure. Mm-hmm. You can imagine how orderly a home front is, mm-hmm. when you have your mother there, because she really knows how to make sure you stick to the rules. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same abilities that they bring on board. So As we sit now, we are not comfortable with it. We would like to see boards embrace more women at boards and at senior management, and even taking more strategic roles as opposed to the softer roles on the board. More of the what was being told is the uncomfortable side of the organization, which I think is something that now they have to take up.
I like the fact that you're saying that you're not comfortable. And when you talk to a lot of men, who are at a leadership level, they also say that it is high time that we bring more women at the management level. And when you look at a survey that was done by the Africa Development Bank, ADB, back in the year 2015, they surveyed 2,668 companies in Africa, whereby only 365 positions were held by women. And that is about 12.7%. How comes men don't walk the talk?
I think two things here. One, as Millicent has just said, men beget men, so to speak. Through our networks, we hear of a vacancy, we sort of look at which, the first thing that comes top of mind is that is there another man who can bring this on board? But I think we now need to move out of that thinking and now say, is there a skill that we're looking for, and who has that skill? I'm glad to see very many women are actually getting very highly educated and very, very exposed even globally to international work, international ways of experiences. And so as opposed to sticking to the old thinking where we must just get another man to fill the position, I think we now need to change that. Looking at a number of companies on the listed exchange who have actually adopted this, in fact 2 of them have adopted this, where they've taken a 50-50 balance. And we've seen a direct link between performance and board composition. So I think there is evidence that having more women on board brings value and brings and strengthens performance. So I think that whole narrative that women roles are just on company secretary or HR heads must change.
It is, and it is changing.
We have to transform it.
I want to hear from Millicent. Number one, you're a mother, you're a wife, you're a CEO. How do you manage to balance all these and at the end of the day, you achieve what you're supposed to achieve?
Yeah, I think one of the things obviously is a good support system. I use my support system, my parents, my siblings, my children, my husband. Everybody has to work with me to be able to do it. So there's some things, and I remember a boss of mine saying something very good, and I have good help at home as well. So I value my help at home because she gets me organized at home. And I start my day early and try to finish it early as well. So I start my day early, I get in by or before 7. So I'm able to catch up on what I need to catch up on before everybody comes in. And when everybody comes in, my door remains open. And then I try to leave early as much as I can. Occasionally I may work longer hours, but I try to leave early, go home, and do the home front as well. So then I get the best of both worlds.
Is it a tough balancing act?
I must say it's tougher when the children are younger. I must say it is much tougher when the children are younger because then the needs of the family are much, they demand much more. But as the family grows older, it gets easier because then everybody's able to take care of themselves and you're just part of the deal. So it gets easier as the children grow older. Yeah.
And you were talking about the old club of men, whereby men begets men, as the narrative goes. What is the role of men in advancing the agenda of women in corporate Kenya? Oh
yes, they have a big role because most, as you said, most organizations are led by men. And therefore men having the opportunity to see management trainees, young women coming in as management trainees, they have the opportunity to take these women into areas. It's not typical for women to seek new opportunities. I mean, even as an MD sitting in my office, it's more men who come in and say, I want to be transferred to this area, I want to be given this opportunity. So men need to look at an opportunity to say, you look like you can do a good job here, let's push you here, let's put you here, and rotate you with a mind to developing a CEO. Yes.
And do you think that men are ready to offer women leadership positions? Do you think they are ready to let off all that?
think that I wouldn't say that they're not ready. I think they're just not as aware of their role. Okay, so it's not fair to say they're not ready. I think it's just to make men more aware of the difference between men and women. It's not that women are lacking. It's not that men are not interested. But if they're made aware that they have an influence that they can use, then they will use it effectively. But when they don't use their influence, I mean, you see it in parliamentary positions, for instance. Men just use their positions to bully women. And that way they push themselves forward. But there are some few men who are willing to pull up. Actually, even in corporate America, when you think about it, this gender issue only became an issue as the older men had daughters who they had trained and were now coming into corporate. And so they realized that their daughters were just as effective as some of the men they had worked with. And so they pushed the agenda of women coming on board. So men need to embrace this because their daughters are going to school. And if they don't push this agenda, their daughters will have no opportunities.
Yeah.
And actually, you've cited the US, and it's not also doing very well because gender representation is about 17%, meaning that it is 83% skewed towards men.
Yeah.
And I want to come back to Geoffrey. You sit in a position whereby you can drive policy and influence decision making.
Exactly.
Can we have a requirement as part of listing requirements at the NSE whereby if you're listing, you must also have some fair representation of women in your company? Is it possible?
Well, we want to make it voluntary and not compulsory. I think through the new approach in integrated reporting, the new code of corporate governance, there are a lot of things there that we're speaking to. We're speaking to diversity. We're speaking to strengthening your governance structures by bringing in a diverse pool of skills. And so companies that are adapting this voluntary are getting better scores, especially when they're getting an analytical review from investors. Investors are no longer just looking for the financial return, but they're looking at how sustainable are these organizations, even in terms of how they're composed, what is the level of, what's the skill set at the board level, what is their agenda towards diversity. And so these tend to also promote the level of interest that investors have in the organization. So we're seeing a bit more the uptake improving. The companies that are taking up integrated reporting are now getting more appeal. We're working on how can we create indices to promote this. So we envisage a progression as opposed to a compulsion, but a progression towards getting this agenda taken up, and more and more engagement like this will probably open that space. I'd like to just agree with what Millicent is saying. It's probably not where the women are lacking, but it's how then do we facilitate them to come on the board? How do we remove them from the from behind the scenes and bring them to the forefront? Something that she said very well, which I liked, is how can we take women and put them in uncomfortable positions, even at the board level? Not leave them in the what you call comfortable position, but have them involved in strategy, involved in numbers, etc., and hold them there. So this whole mindset has to change, and I think forums like this will continuously improve that.
If we were to look at or to adopt the stick and carrot approach, and you're on record saying that you don't want to use the stick, what then carrot? What kind of carrot are you likely to use, to entice more companies, to embrace gender diversity?
I think we're promoting a lot of roundtable discussions, especially among chairs of boards and the boards themselves, and encouraging them to diversify the boards at various levels. One of the things that we did a couple of years ago was also to have a recognition for companies that are doing that, and we did this round what we call the diversity dialogue program that we had, and recognize those firms that brought this on board. And we believe that also creating indices, say on corporate governance, on sustainability, and your company being part of that index will also tend to give you more appeal to investors and see your share price also perform well. So a lot of things we have to do around that to help that happen. With time, We believe that the early adopters will basically get better value and better recognition and better brand equity in the long term. Don't forget, women also drive the domestic budgets of things, and I believe if you're looking for growth in your business, I think this is an area that you need to focus on. It's a segment of a population that you cannot ignore.
I'll be coming back to that, but I also want to find out from Millicent here, how then do we get women from the kitchen room to the boardroom without necessarily disrupting their daily life?
Yeah, I think we need flexible hours. It's not difficult. It's flexible hours. When it comes time for maternity, maternity should be allowed. It should be allowed properly, not grudgingly. Like, you know, if you take a day longer, we will not pay your salary. You know, paternity, support systems. A lady was telling me that, you know, rooms where mothers can go to you know, express their milk. I mean, just creating an environment that allows women to thrive. You know, and you know, I think there's a lot of discussion around just women, but I remember as a manager one time, I had a young man whose family was almost breaking apart because they were living apart. And we facilitated a transfer for him to restore his family. So it's not only a female issue, it's an issue for families, okay? Women suffer more because they're more responsible for the family.
Yeah.
But organizations should be conscious that the family is the first point of governance. If you have broken families, it's unlikely that you'll have good companies. So effort should be made to allow people to succeed at home and at work.
And at work. Thank you very much. I also want to find out, because we also have to come to an end. Can you paint to us what's the correlation between a company's performance and gender representation?
Yeah, I think Jeff says it very well. As women bring in a lot of organizations, actually, right now the world has focused a lot on technical skills. And now they say that your success in your career is only 15% technical. 85% of it is softer skills. And who like women to bring softer skills? You know, the team spirit, the ability to work together, the celebration of success, the feeling of achievement. These are skills that women bring. And when women are brought into these organizations thrive because of both their technical skills and their soft skills.
Geoffrey, I want to find out from you, are men ready to invite women to the table of men?
And women.
And
women. Yeah, I think it's a journey. It has started. Kenya has actually made progress towards this. Constitutionally, there's a framework around having more women representation, and I think we can borrow from that in the corporate world and adapt it. But I think it's also not just the men to facilitate the women, but it's the women making a bold move, being able to come out and demand for it, as opposed to be waiting out to be looked for. That's the theme of today's discussions, Bold for Change.
Exactly.
Women need to come out of the shells and say, I have the ability to do it, and I want it.
Thank
And
you.
that's exactly what we hope that we can
It's a
see.
very interesting scenario whereby you have, in this scenario, or in this case, the government leading the way when it comes to gender inclusivity, and the corporate world is lagging behind. Finally, from you, the world is ready for women. Are women ready for the world?
I think women are ready for the world. We'll just need to encourage them and push them. But they are ready. They are ready. And given the opportunities, they will thrive. They just need to be bolder.
Bolder.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Millicent.
you.
And we hope that the women are listening and they are going to get bolder.
Yes, they will be. They will
Geoffrey,
be bolder.
asante sana for your time.
Welcome.
What we have been discussing, how we can advance the women or gender inclusivity in corporate Kenya. Millicent Onyonyi is the Managing Director, BOC Kenya Limited, and Geoffrey Odundo, Chief Executive Officer, Nairobi Securities Exchange, joining us here on the Trading Bell. Stay right here. Thank you. Well, admiring one of the murals of the Stanley Hotel, and this one goes back to 1902, quite a rich heritage of the Stanley Hotel there. And of course, always remember, this is where the Nairobi Securities Exchange was born back in 1954, so we're talking about close to 64 years ago. This marks the end of the trading bell for this evening. Thank you very, very much indeed for being part of us this evening. Well, if you want to interact with us, our Twitter handles at O'Brien Kimani, at KBC Channel 1, and at The Trading Bell. Our Facebook page is The Trading Bell TV Show. Our SMS line is 22162. Always remember to start with the word BASE. My name is O'Brien Kimani. We hope to see you again on Thursday next week. Until then, do have yourself a good evening, and of course we take you back to Broadcasting House.